Hi and welcome. I've had requests from a number of teachers and clients to clarify a distinction that I've been teaching for a number of years, which is when we say relationship to gravity, how does that relate to, or what actually is a relationship of how our legs connect to our spine, to our diaphragm, and how is the diaphragm a postural support for how the leg functions well, how the leg can move freely. How do we have the leg move freely and not just get stuck in the hip joint? So one thing that we talk about, and you'll see a number of videos on our site around back of the leg to the front of the spine. And there are specific muscles in our bodies that are gravity based. That means that they respond to the vestibular. They're vestibular muscles. They give us our balance and our poise. And the psoas is one, the multifidus, the hamstrings. And it's interesting because we usually think of the hamstrings as muscles that kind of move us or help us to sit down, or they work the back of the leg specifically. But the hamstrings actually function as an internal lift postural support and a support for the flexors. So let's take a look down here and look at how lift happens from the inner ankle. But it happens as we release. We only get the lift in the inner ankle when we get the release. That's what the red theraband is signifying. The release down into the tripod of the foot. The release into gravity through the tripod of the foot, standing. And that release down, the yielding to gravity, is what ignites, wakes up our ability to lift inner ankle, inner thigh, internal belly along the front of the spine, specifically the front of the pelvic floor, coming along the front of the spine, through the scalenes, to the inner ear. So it matters where your front of your spine lives. And what I mean by that is when your hamstrings are functioning well, meaning that you feel the down and you get that sense of sit bone to heel, a sense of hip opening as you stand. So you're using your psoas for support rather than hanging on the inner or outer hip. You feel the buoyancy of your pelvis. What that does is that support through this part of the diaphragm. Remember, the diaphragm's a two-bellied muscle, and so it comes out of support through the ribs and it roots into the spine right at the lumbodorsal hinge right here, and this is the root of the diaphragm releasing down. But the diaphragm connects all the way from the roots, connects all the way down to the tail, but it is also deeply connected through the psoas to the back of the leg, to the hamstring, all the way through to the tripod of the foot, the sole of the foot. So hamstrings become a very dynamic support for through the psoas to the spine, to the diaphragm. And right here at the lumbodorsal hinge, at the crura, the ligaments here that root the arcuate ligament that roots the diaphragm through the crura to the spine. Remember that ligaments are part of the whole fascial system. So the body doesn't know ligament. It doesn't know tendon. It doesn't know these names that we give things through biomechanical dissection. All it knows is connection. So in the body's perspective to gravity, there is no ligament. All there is rooting to the tail and to the feet. So that's what we're wanting to get in touch with, is how our whole breathing support, it matters where my ribs live. If I push up, tighten my back, that lifts my tail. When I release my tail, let my tail be heavy, that softens my ribs, and then I get my shoulder blade to deep belly support, and I get a full functioning of my leg's ability to move freely. So this is where breathing and walking happen. Specifically, when we look at widening of the clavicles, let's look at it this way. Here's the inner ankle, inner thigh, internal belly along the front of the spine to the inner ear, up, that's lift, and that's the up. But that is supported by the hamstring support of front of the spine, widening, softening ribs. Widening gives me waterfall down the back. And the waterfall down the back connects to my foot all the way through the hamstrings. So when I soften my knees, I feel my whole foot. As I exhale, rather than exhaling through my knees, how do I exhale? Through breath support, through the way in which I breathe, which is a functional way that changes constantly depending upon what my metabolic need is. So there's not one way to breathe. It's a way of being with myself in relationship to what I'm doing, which is great. That's why we want to be with ourselves, discover how we function in a way that gravity can support us, and we feel the fascial continuities, we feel how everything works together rather than pieces and parts. The psoas is not the most important midline muscle. Nothing functions by itself. Everything is in relationship to everything else, and there's not one important muscle. You'll see an interview that I do with Philip Beach on the website where he speaks specifically about that the psoas is not the most important muscle. And everything is supported by breath. Without breath, it doesn't matter what muscle you're focusing on. Nothing works. So breathing, living, having fun, and just being with your whole self. Really, isn't that what it's all about? All right, thanks so much. Love to hear from you. Be in touch. Thanks.